And I call this meeting of the it's a joint meeting of the Elkhorn Common Council, Sugar Creek Town Board, Lafayette Town Board, and Geneva Town Board to order. Can we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? There's a flag here and one in the back of me too, so whichever you'd like. Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've got a couple of people just walked in. If you want to grab a chair maybe and slide up to the table, we can make some more room here on the corners or.
If you need access, you get access to it.
I have that all here.
Can't scoot out the door here.
I'm just public.
Okay.
Yeah, Annie, can you move back? That way we can get other people in here.
Yeah.
Brandon.
I can hear my.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Want to lane up there?
I did show this morning, honestly.
You got spots over here. If you come on down, come on up to the table. Good job. Rebecca,
You
are
wanna
we
join the
doing
table,
roll
sir?
call? Is that?
I'm just a
possible
town
for this
resident.
meeting?
Resident, okay, okay. We're trying to make sure we got all the board members around the table.
Okay, we've got a roll call, please.
Tim Schroeder,
Here.
Peter Harvey,
Here.
Gary Payson Jr.,
Here.
Ron Dunwoody,
Here.
Scott McClory,
Here.
Ken Minell,
Here.
and Roberts.
Roberts. Here. Thank you.
Okay. Mark Skirba,
I don't think he's going to be here.
Steve Oden,
Here?
Scott Williams,
No, he's not going to be here.
Jeff Monroe,
No.
Joseph Kopecki, Derek Steffen,
Not here.
A.G. Shaw,
Here.
Greg Friesman,
Here.
David Robers,
Here.
David Quarbor,
Here.
Jamie Moran. Okay.
Rebecca, just to confirm for the record, we have a quorum of the city council. Are we lacking a quorum for the town of Geneva?
So, yes, there is
Okay.
only one present.
Okay, and then we have a quorum for Sugar Creek?
Yes, ma'am.
Sugar Creek
Okay.
and Lafayette, yep.
Okay, so then for purposes of the joint meeting, we would convene the boards and bodies that have a quorum, but not the bodies that don't have a quorum. So for voting purposes, the bodies without a quorum would not be able to vote.
I think it would be something important to tell us before we showed up,
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that either.
brought to our attention.
Yeah.
I don't think we're planning on any votes.
Okay.
I don't think it'd be an
I
issue.
just wanted to point that
Yeah,
out.
but just,
More of a discussion.
our next item is to select a meeting chair. So take nominations or however we want to do that.
I nominate Tim.
Mayor Schroeder.
Tim Schroeder.
I guess we've got a nomination and a second.
We do.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for the,
Congratulations. That happened to me last week.
Rebecca is the meeting secretary. Do we need to select her, Elaine?
You could do that informally. I didn't know if this body is going to be a regular meeting body, that might be something we want to place on the next meeting agenda if we're going to have regular joint meetings as this process moves forward. I didn't know if it would be all of the members of the bodies or if this like each of the bodies would create or appoint members to as kind of like a subcommittee to work on the project. So I think that should be part of either this discussion as you're talking about the planning piece and how you want it to move forward. And then certainly at the next meeting, you could decide if you want a formal secretary.
Okay, thank you. Public comment. Do we have anyone here for public comment? Would anyone like to be heard for that? Okay, we'll close public comment. Our next item is a presentation by Nate Constantine Bray Architects.
Yes, good evening.
You're ready to go. You're up.
All right. Well, thank you again for having me. I was thinking on the way over here, today is a heck of a lot nicer day than when I was back here in February. I think that was a very brittly cold day when I did this last presentation. So I'm just glad to see the weather turning. I believe in the packet provided tonight is the full presentation. We'll jump right into the last recommendation slides. We did move some additional slides down comparative to the past just to recap some of the presentation that we think is necessary for everyone to see. But if I do have the full presentation with me tonight. So if there's anything that you would like to go back on when we hit the summary, I'm more than happy to. So to kick things off, Bray was brought on board by the city of Elkhorn to do an existing building analysis. The analysis was twofold. One of the building structure itself at the fire department, and then the other portion of how the building complies with NFPA 1710. So starting with the building itself, the building is in need of repairs at a minimum. The fire department is operating in space that is not conducive for the team or maintaining staff or recruiting staff, in Bray's opinion. There's a list of things here related to HVAC, roofs, apparatus bay, office space, etc. that is on this slide. I'm more than happy to go through all of that, but in the best interest of time, want to get through some of this. As presented back in February, the existing site does serve the city limits of Elkhorn well. Staying on this current site or within a 3-block radius is recommended for a station to serve the city of Elkhorn. However, additional space and renovations is recommended to alleviate spaces within the existing building. On the screen, you will see some 4 main bullet points. The largest space needs being office space, bunk room space, kitchen, and day room, all necessary for the staff. And then some of the main renovation needs for the building are replacement of the apparatus bay floor, HVAC replacement, and roof replacement. To solve some of the space needs, we did put a very schematic level floor plan together. I know it's a little hard to see on your screen, but that would be a 2-story structure on the south side of the existing building. First floor primarily being office and kitchen space, and second floor would be bunk room and day room space. The addition is sized the way it is due to the existing site constraints, and we'll get into the next. Here's a little bit larger of a floor plan there. There are some existing site restrictions due to the alley, existing site being straight up onto the adjacent street. This would give us a buffer of about 17 feet off the property line on the south, but it would be demolishing the existing storage shed that is in need of repair as well. Just a quick overview is that looking at roughly 2026 construction costs, I will be honest, before tariff conversation, right? It had an estimated project budget at $7.6 to $8 million to do this 2-story addition and renovate the existing fire department building to support such as the apparatus bay floor, HVAC, roofing, etc. There are some existing site restrictions that we discussed back in February. Creating the additional space needs for the building would remove any available parking on the site that the city currently owns. The site was already inadequate with parking availability with a limited amount of parking. Just looking at the site you currently own, parking would have to be rented or properties nearby would have to be purchased to provide adequate parking for staff. Broad Street would have to be reworked to fix the slope issues. Currently, as you know, or what was presented back in February, is that the slope coming out of the apparatus bay is too steep, which is causing damage to apparatus as it is departing the bay floor. It is a slight downside that the current site would have to continue to remain as a back-in only station. If we were looking at a new station, just in a hypothetical scenario, we do prefer the fact that they can drive through the station. So you'd be able to drive around back and pull through. That is, if you're designing a new station in Wisconsin, wherever, that is the standard. So just, I do want to note that that is a restriction of the current site. One other note that we did look at in this process is that the current site is not large enough for a tear down and rebuild. This is due to the physical space needed for the apparatus bay, bare minimums on the first floor, and a minimum of 16 parking stalls to account for staff. So it's the site as that you currently own that parcel simply is not large enough. Just a reiteration of the project budget. And just as a recap, we also did a cost comparison of what a new station would cost comparative to remodeling the existing site. So you can see the cost comparison on the site of $7.6 to $8 million at your existing site, which still has its restrictions, and not accounting land acquisition or site-specific information such as utilities. A new project would go in the range of 11.8 to 13.6 million, depending on if you went for a steel frame, which is a bit more economical, but not as long lasting of a building comparative to a brick and mortar. I said a large range in there because you could consider the entire range, but we had the steel frame between 11.8 and 12.4 and a brick and mortar that's going to last you 60 to 80 years, 13 to 13.6 million. So just as a quick cost comparison, that's what we studied back in February. Related to this, as I discussed when we kicked off, we do feel like it's necessary to study the NFPA 1710 requirements. So this is related to your ISO rating. Just as a quick recap, NFPA standard 1710 establishes that it is a goal that you have not less than 90% of dispatched incidences where your team arrives on site in 5 minutes and 20 seconds as a total response time. The NFPA 1710 breaks it down into an 80-second turnout time and a 240-second travel time. The question has been raised, what happens if 90% of the dispatch incidents are not met? Insurance rates for property owners are directly affected by the ISO rating. One is a high rating, or the rating that you would like to achieve by, and 10 is a not good rating. Your current ISO ratings within the municipal boundary is at a rating of 3, and your current ISO rating outside of the city of Elkhorn municipal boundary is at a rating of 5. I believe if you were to ask Chief, there is currently a inactive engine stored down in the Geneva Township right now that I believe is currently affecting the ISO rating. When they come back through ISO ratings every 2 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years. So, Chief, can you correct me on the timeline?
Usually anywhere between 4 and 7 years is normal.
So when they come through that, they will relook at all of your ISO requirements based off of the availability you guys have at that point in time. So I just want to, that's some data points to how ISO is created and how the NFPA standard 1710 affects ISO. Related to that, we did study travel time. So if we look at your current site right now, there is 7,164 addresses within the primary response area. You can see on the screen, there's a two-tone green. Actually, it's a little hard to see the upper right, but you can imagine the upper right corner where it says the black name. There's a secondary response area in the dark green, and the light green is your primary response area. The purple hatch is where your 5 minute and 20-second drive time would accomplish. Within your 7,100 addresses in the entire area, only 3,393 addresses are served by that 5 minute and 20-second drive time area. That is a total of 47.4 addresses served. The NFPA 1710 is looking for you to get close to that 90% benchmark. We did go through a variety of studies. I have those with me tonight if you want to go back and look at them. For instance, I will point out that if you can look at the purple boundary on this map, that the city of Elkhorn is served by the current fire station location at approximately like 93% of addresses served. So as far as the city is concerned, they're meeting the ISO requirement at 90%. However, when we look at the total primary response area, we are well short of the 90% goal. One of the steps studied did try to figure out what are some generic intersections in the primary response area that would get us as close as we possibly could in maybe a reasonable aspect to 90%. So we studied 2 stations. We studied a new station north of town. This study on the screen shows a 3-station study. This would be the current fire station location, a potential new station on the north side of town at the intersection of Highway 12 and County Road A, and then a station south side of town at the intersection of Palmer and Petrie. You can see the blue, the Highway 12 and County Road A intersection would accomplish the blue hatch. The Palmer and Petrie location would account for the orange hatch, and then the purple hatch remains as the current fire station location. Of the 7,100 addresses, 5,900 would be served in the 5 minutes and 20 seconds, which would get you to 83.4 addresses served. This is still short of the 90%. However, the strategy behind this was trying to place a hypothetical station in areas of large populations. Just given the remaining 1,200 addresses, they are a bit more scattered. Placing another one on the map is going to start to create additional overlap and less efficiency. So felt like this was the sweet spot of getting you as close to 90%. And then if there's growth within some of those 3 bigger areas that we've identified, you'd get closer and closer to 90% if growth were to occur. So felt like, yes, we could add a 4th, we could add a 5th station to get up above 90%, but at some point it's just too unreasonable. This may be too unreasonable, but trying to get you as close to 90% as possible. So as a summary, this was presented back in February. There are multiple project options. We do know that the station needs repair, but we've tried to outline 6 different options that this meeting could entertain. Option 1 is you leave the station as is. I would not recommend that. Things will continue to deteriorate and become maintenance items for you, but that is an option. The second option is to renovate the station and do not expand. The team is doing a really good job working in close quarters and makes things work. Compliments to them, right? So one case could be is renovate what you have and roll forward with that. Third option is to expand the station footprint and find a solution to provide parking for staff. A 4th would be a new single station outside of downtown and seek to sell the current building. 5th would be a new station outside of downtown to better serve the primary response area and then remodel the current station to serve the city. And then the last option would be the last slide we looked at, which would get you 2 new stations outside of downtown, remodel the current station to bring the community closest to NFPA compliance. So there's a variety of options there for you. Perhaps there's another option we did not consider, but we feel like that's a little bit of the gambit of options there. My last slide is a summary and final recommendation. So as a summary, the existing site does serve the city of Elkhorn residents well. However, it does not serve the primary response area well. The existing building needs more than repairs, as repairs do not solve the space needs inside or outside the physical building footprint. When I think about outside, I'm talking about parking availability for staff. Recommendation, 2 main recommendations. Consider building a new or remodeled fire department headquarters in the current site or within a 3-block radius to serve the city of Elkhorn. I understand that's very difficult. There's not necessarily a property available in that 3-block radius, but the purpose of stating it that way is that the 3-block radius keeps you within your 5-minute and 20-second threshold. Second recommendation is to consider building a satellite station or stations outside of town to better serve the primary response area and to improve the ISO ratings and NFPA compliance. So I hope that between the full report, the facility study, and what we've gone through tonight, I know I went through that rather quickly, but does provide our recommendation after coming in and doing an analysis on your existing building and an analysis on your NFPA 1710 compliance. So with that, I would open it up for questions, comments.
Question for you on the existing building. How many square foot is that?
Let me go back to before the slide.
14,400, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, 14,410 square feet. As a comparison, We did go through an exercise with City of Elkhorn admin as well as the fire department, and the desired square footage is 18,800 square feet.
Where does the staff currently park?
There is some parking to the south of the facility, but it is not much. Chief, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that staff is parking on the street temporarily and then having to move, but shift change is the biggest issue. Is that fair, Chief?
Correct. Thank you.
In terms of scaled down stations, the two auxiliary ones, would they be scaled down in size? I mean, relative to that, or I guess what's the nature of those or budget wise? What, if you're 11 to 13 million
Yeah.
satellites or less than that? or-
Correct. Yes. So it does depend on this team, the fire department, that I think there's a design discussion around that. The early preliminary conversations with the fire department would be is that there could be a much reduced office, that there would be a primary chief, and then there would not be the need for, maybe a fire inspector at every location. We could reduce the office size down, and there would be a reduced square footage at each station. To be determined, every municipality looks at it a little bit different. Whether or not there's an assistant chief at every station or not, I suppose it would depend on the quantity of stations as well. But overall, there's just so many variables to that. But the short and sweet answer to that is that satellite stations could definitely be smaller than a quote unquote like headquarters station in a multiple station scenario.
What would you be looking at equipment-wise into the satellites compared to, where the ladder truck is? What would be required in those equipment-wise in those satellite areas?
Yeah, Chief, do you mind?
I have all that. You want to go over that right now, or you want to wait till after we're talking about the building?
Wait till after the building.
Okay, yeah, I went through a 1, 2, and 3 station,
All right.
Okay.
what we would need for equipment, manpower, things like that.
Overall quantity of trucks, are they the same or would they be less?
Quantity would, if you're going to 3 stations, you need an engine at each station, 2 outlying stations, since there's non-hydrogen in most of Geneva Township except for Geneva National. They said we need a tender north and south, and then a brush truck at one, utility truck at another. Ladder truck could probably stay at headquarters because majority of the tall buildings, majority of the tall buildings are within city limits. Yes, it would come out for any structure fire outside of the city, but that's the majority of the buildings that are tall are that would
You wouldn't be
require.
looking for 3 brushes and 3 ladders, right?
Nope.
You would be efficient in those scenarios.
Yes, sir. Brush truck would probably go north, trailer with all my water rescue stuff would go south. So.
You have more questions or anyone else like to dive in? I guess my question, I don't want to ask this wrong, is, and I get is it the ISO standard, 5 minutes and 20 seconds?
That's the NFP 17,
Oh,
NFPA
NF
17
okay.
standard, yep.
Got that right here, NFPA 1710. So do the township folks, is your goal to get to that 5 minutes and 20 seconds? Or do you understand it just takes longer to get, 10 miles out of town?
I think we're under the understanding it is,
I mean,
it always has been, so it's, they do a very good job in getting to where it's.
in an ideal world, we all want that.
I would agree as well. I mean, I think roughly we're averaging about 8 to 9 minutes. And I think we understand the scenario here. I mean, what you want 4 minutes? What's the cost to do that? It's, yeah.
Cost is the big item, that's right, to make it different.
So that if that's true, and I believe it is, then we're kind of taking the 3 stations off the table. Are we? I'm open to all.
I don't see how, there's just a lot of money to talk about. Okay. Yeah, that's the biggest expenditure to have all three there.
So I think, if you're asking us to pay for a percentage,
Well,
we should be
yep, yeah,
at the
absolutely.
same rate as
Yep.
Elkhorn,
Yep.
then
Then
if
that's-
we're a lesser percentage, then, well, you know.
Oh, that's why you're
We
here.
can take our
We're
house burning down, you know? So that's kind of.
And I think we're probably in a little bit different situation than you guys are in that we also are in a relationship with the city of Lake Geneva as well. So I think, you guys are probably a little bit more alike. We're a little bit on the, a little bit different.
It's a tough value proposition for us. I mean, it don't matter how much we spend as a township, we're never gonna get to a higher rating. I mean, where I live, it don't matter what you do, the rating's not gonna go up, but that's part of being that rural and lack of coverage. But I guess from the township standpoint, I mean, we still have to, is there a value to the citizens when, right now we're paying $500,000 a year, as the township, and what do we get for it? What's that value proposition?
Does anyone have any more questions for Nate, or should we move on to new business?
So you're somewhere between remodel is about $500 a square foot, and the new building $700 to $900.
Yeah, I think it could vary a little bit based off of where, if new site is in there and things like that. But yeah, I would say somewhere in that neighborhood of 5 to 6. I think 7 was a little high. I'd have to double check my math, but
Does Elkhorn have anything in that area for a new building, or is it going to have to be moved?
Not
Location. Stay, get renovated. There's nothing within 3 blocks that's willing to be sold, including parking.
There's a possibility to work out the parking. Church, I think, they own that property. So that's a possibility that the parking could be right next to the fire station. Looking at remodeling that, getting it up to standard.
I will say just for what it's worth, I mean, obviously renovating an operational building has its own challenges as well. So just thinking about the floor itself, right? Understanding there's more to that building, right? But you're going to probably have to take all of your apparatus bay and operations somewhere for a short period of time. I could imagine anywhere in the neighborhood of like 2 to 4 months. So like just something, I'm not trying to scare you from that, but it's an operational piece of remodeling that existing facility. That would obviously be worked out if you got to the point where you had a contractor, they'd be able to give you a better timeline on that, but just the estimation on my end.
The first piece of new business we had on the agenda here was a discussion and possible decision regarding findings of the Elkhorn Fire Station Space Needs Analysis and Study, which is kind of what we've been doing, but does anyone have anything they want to share about the results of this study?
And do all the other townships need time to review the details with the rest of their boards?
Oh, yeah,
And
no
they-
decisions are gonna be
Right,
made.
I'm just saying as far as, well, because right now you're asking for a possible direction, and I don't think any of them are in a position to say, hey, let's go this way or that way without taking the information back to your respective boards and say, okay, guys, here it is. What do you think? And then coming back here as that committee and saying, okay, you want 3, you want 1, you want 2, you don't want any, you know what I mean? So.
What are your options for moving the station somewhere else, the center one? where would be your closest? Where does that?
We don't have anything within 3 blocks.
Right.
There's been a discussion about the county site, the courthouse site, but I believe that's been put on a back burner and the county's not ready to do that, so, and we can't wait, you know, that may, 5 years from now, that may change completely, but we can't wait 5 years.
But even if we did move it down there, we still wouldn't be within 3 blocks of downtown.
No, I'm talking about the old courthouse site.
Oh, gotcha.
Across the street.
Oh, yeah, I know that. I think Adam, you looked into that briefly and they were of the opinion that they're going to just hold fast. So, yeah, we did look at that. I'm sorry. When you said county building, I was thinking downtown and highway and then. Yeah, there's no,
There's might be some sites up by the north end of town, but that makes access to Geneva even longer.
Well, and it blew the city of Elkhorn's rating altogether
Yeah.
because the entire south side of the
Town.
city is not covered.
Yeah.
So, you know, I remember the study from February, it was, he tried right over here, just one, and it wiped out the north. If we went to the north, it wiped out the south, and ideally was literally right where it is the sweet spot.
I think the best, the one that made most sense, that we've talked about before, is to leave the station where it's at and work with that. you
I don't
know?
think we have another choice.
Yeah, really.
We really
If
don't.
you look at the other choices or build a new one 3 blocks away or whatever, I think it's in the right spot. And, you know,
Make it usable. Yeah. It'd be hard to tell the townships to make it usable. The money, oh yeah, but. Yeah.
Yeah, part of it is the facilities, and everyone wants nice facilities, but, and the chief can expound on this more than I can, but personnel, you're competing against, whether it's Waukesha, Racine, Kenosha, wherever, to attract these firemen, and with substandard facilities, it makes it difficult to get them or to keep them.
I know they had problems here for a while. People come in and get trained and go somewhere else and work.
Because you've got some practically spas. I think, Peter, you might talk about that. You're a longtime fireman here. You had nice facilities in the city.
And well, yeah, after the race station was done downtown, I only worked there several days. I was never assigned there, but yeah, it was pretty nice. But we had 3 stations while it was.
So. Should we move on to the apparatus and equipment? The chief maybe give us some info on that?
On the back page, you know, for the equipment and status for the equipment. We'll just run through the list. 2623 Geneva Township, that's the one that's sitting out in the woodworking shop. It does move, brakes hang up on it. There's no air packs, there's no equipment. It was put there for ISO purposes in the past, back when they had paid on call. Now that we don't have paid on call, it's listed on ISO as Station 2 for Elkhorn. When they come back through on ISO, that station will no longer exist because we're not staffing it. 2625, 2009 Spartan Rosenbauer. It's currently in service. I have it in reserve as of right now. This is the truck we just put about $35,000 to $40,000 into the pump, and the pump's in really bad shape. That was plumbing. That was a bunch of things that blew up, a foam pump in it. Fuel tank's leaking. One of the cross members is cracked on the frame. That's why it's in reserve status. 2626, 2004 HME US tanker. It was a pumper tanker, 2,000 gallon a minute pump, 2,500 gallons of water. We could not get it to pass pump test this year. We could not get capacity. Tried a couple different valves. Well, when we broke the officer side discharge off, there was all the impeller laying in the discharge. So the impeller assembly blew apart. That truck is, it needs a ton of pump work. And I just don't think at 21 years old, is it, that one's the one that we took out to Fire Service Inc. with the bad frame. And that's another one that had a bad frame, rust jacking problems. The frame was buckled, driver's side in between the duals. I just don't know how much more money you guys want to put into that truck. 2631, that is our tender. That is 3,500 gallons of water. That's just bringing mobile water to areas that don't have hydrants. 2650 was our old ladder truck. That has since been surplus. Our new ladder is sitting out in the parking lot. That's 51 that's sitting out in the parking lot. 2655 was the newest truck that we had before we had the ladder truck. That's a 2013 Spartan Rosenbauer. That one barely made pump capacity this year with two 6-inch intakes going in for 1,500 gallon a minute pump. We were 400 RPM short of redlining it and not getting capacity out of that. So I'm assuming what the mechanics are telling me is that one probably has pump damage too. So that one's
Frontline engine right now?
that is our frontline engine. Both of our frontline engines are 25, which is the one I just put in reserve because I don't want to blow it all the way up. You know, I don't want to blow it completely. 55 is probably not far off. 60 was our equipment truck that has already been surplused. That'll be replaced by a utility trailer, carry our water equipment. And hopefully we'll put a cascade system in there for filling air bottles on scene. 2670 is a 2006 Ford. It's a low cab. It's a cab over, real low. It's got a rollback bed on it. They were using that to carry around the UTV. We spent a lot of money on a truck and a rollback bed to carry around a UTV. Normally, best practice is where the brush truck goes, the UTV goes with it. It's attached to the brush truck. Everything is used for wildland. Take it all at one time. Instead of running two trucks, we're just pulling it with another truck. 2671 is our Polaris. That's a 2023. That is our off-road UTV. That's what would go on that trailer, be pulled by the brush truck. The utility and the travel, utility 2669, it's a F-150 that is used as a utility truck running around doing inspections, hauling gear, hauling equipment. The travel car is a 2017 Ford Explorer that we got from the police department. They were going to auction it. We use that for people going to classes. If one of the command trucks is out for service, we'll jump in that and use that. 2601, that's currently my vehicle. The one I drive, it's a 2016 Ford Explorer. That one's getting up there. We're 90-some thousand miles. That one we'll probably have to look at the next year or two replacing that. 2602 is brand new. It's the one you guys just bought, and we thank you for that. That is what my assistant chief is driving. And then the next three are my ambulances. 2693 currently is our reserve ambulance, was supposed to be replaced this year. And due to the market and delays, it is now pushed off till July or August of next year instead of, it got pushed off from last year to this year, and now it's gotten pushed off again. So between the time I talked to the dealer or the vendor and I talked to him a second time, it had moved another month back. We're like 900 in queue. They build 9 a week. Yeah. 95 and 97 are both in service. Brad, remind me, which one's the 16? Is that 97?
97.
97 is a 2016, currently sitting at about 115,000 miles. So I'm looking at the one that we're replacing. We're going to be putting it on a pickup truck chassis that you guys approved. My goal is to re-chassis them about every 12 years. That way we're keeping the box, that life cycle. We'll get 24 years out of a box. Actually, we'll probably get almost 25 years out of it because it's going to take 7 months to a year to do the upfit or the replacement. But that way we're just re-chassing it. We're getting the life cycle out of the box, saving ourselves about $100,000 on the back end. So as we replace 95 and 97, those will go to pickup truck chassis, and that way we can get more life cycles out of the box, instead of just getting rid of the whole rig. And the utility trailer, and the equipment trailer, those are scheduled to be purchased from the monies that we received from selling the ladder truck and the equipment truck to keep them out of the capital budget. That way we're not bonding for stuff. Does anybody have any questions on apparatus?
You're gonna surplus 2670 when the trailers are outfitted?
2670 is the plan to surplus it with the reserve on that one, because that one, they spent good money on that rollback bed, and put a reserve on that one.
Thanks, Chief.
Yes, sir.
You can see the equipment's a challenge. We've got, what is it? We've got 3 new trucks on the capital improvement plan.
Right,
One a
as we-
year for the next 3 years.
As we move forward, we have an engine scheduled for next year. We have an engine scheduled for next year, and I think we have a pumper tanker, depending on station. If we stay at one station, I'll probably end up doing a pumper tanker, then replacing the tender. And then I had another engine. You want a backup engine at a minimum, because if yours goes down for service, we need something to be able to operate on them, so that we're not wearing everything out.
Is the engine that's coming next year on order, or are we just gonna?
Currently, nothing's on order right now, and right now, wait times on engines. If we would spec one out and build one, engines are going, it depends on what you get into. If it's a full-out custom truck, you're looking at about 3 to 4 year wait time. If we get them out of the select program, which some dealers have, we can get them quicker than that. There's some of them that are out there on the market that turn around, you can get them tomorrow. It's just, what are you getting for a product? Talking to Pierce actually came in. I know I brought one to you guys a while back. It was a Fouts. I have since talked to Pierce. Pierce has a select program. There's one that'll be done in October. It was cheaper than the Fouts one. It was $769 was the base price. It would need graphics. It would need a couple other things, but it came in lower than the knockoff engine. And it's not a Wisconsin-built truck. It's a Florida-built. It's the Sabre chassis. Sabres are built out of Florida. Everything else was built out of Wisconsin, outside of some tenders.
It has the Pierce name on it?
Huh?
You said it has the Pierce name on it?
It's a Pierce Sabre. So they have a second
okay.
factory down in Bradenton, Florida.
Oh,
They
yeah.
build the Sabre chassis, and most of the commercial chassis are built in Florida, unless it's a Mack Granite. The Mack Granites are built up in Oshkosh. They no longer make the Quantums. Well, they're making whatever's left, but different models. But the Sabres are all built out of Florida. It's a hardwired budget truck is what it is, budget friendly. There's not as much multiplexing in it.
You in this mess because we bought cheap trucks before?
I think hard,
Good question.
I mean,
all right.
you're kind of buying budget trucks.
I'll be very honest. Most departments buy one Rosenbauer, and that's the last one they buy. That is the honest answer. Everything is a maintenance thing. If you're not maintaining them, Rosenbauers, I would not have known this till I was told Rosenbauers the pumps have to be kept dry. Obviously, our pumps weren't kept dry because all the piping was eaten away. It looks like someone took a paper punch to the impeller assembly. It's just eaten away. It's hard water. It's sitting in there. It's steel, it's cast, and it's aluminum. If you mix all three of them, you're getting electrolysis. It's eating itself away. So that's part of the pump problems that we have right now. Waterless and hail pumps are meant to be kept wet unless it's wintertime. Then you drain them and leave them dry. Pull the tank to pump on the way to a fire call. You'll have water in the pump by the time you get there. So not saying that the Sabre's a good truck. It is just more economical. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles like an Enforcer, an Aero XT, it's some of the higher end models, but it is built on the same chassis as the Enforcer. It is basically the same cab, same frame, same motor, trans, everything else. It just doesn't have all the bells and whistles. They even put the Enforcer grill on it now, which they weren't. They were doing a different grill. So, that you could differentiate them between the Saber and the Enforcer. Yeah. A lot of it was just maintenance.
So, next year when the engine's budgeted for and comes in, so you'll have a frontline engine that should be reliable. We'll have a truck that's reliable. But I see there's nothing for a tender until 28. I mean, does that put the budget for maintenance more on the back end of those vehicles?
Tender's not going out as much. I mean, the tender is old. The tender's an '02, so it's older. But it's not going out as much and it's not pumping. It doesn't have a pump on it. It has a transfer pump is what the one we currently have is. If I would order a new tender, I would get one with a pump on it. That way we could at least relay pump with it. For ISO purposes, our tender does nothing for us for ISO because it just carries water. If it's got a pump on it, it helps us out with ISO points.
Everybody's got the CIP in front of them, and you can see the investment we need in trucks for this year and also in 26, I guess 26, 28, 29. It's an expensive truck. So it's not only facilities, but it's equipment too.
And as he gave the dates of some of those vehicles, I think it was a replacement, not waiting till the truck is completely, inoperable, actually. And so I think now the chief has got a plan set up for equipment and other things.
And a replacement cycle, sir.
Right. He's got it on a cycle, so.
So NFPA is standard. If you look at NFPA, frontline out the door every day is 15 years, 5 years of reserve, and then down the road. And the majority of that is because of parts availability. Manufacturer only has to keep parts on the shelf or make parts for 20 years.
Mayor, do you mind if I just that for explanation, the items you see highlighted in 26 have actually been purchased this year using grant funds and then excess funds from some of the surplus items that were sold. So those items won't have to be budgeted for 26.
Can you say that again, sir?
Yeah, I just said that the items you see highlighted in 26 have already been acquired this year. We got more grant money than we were expecting. So that was used to cover the extrication equipment. And then the 2 trailers, the chief covered that using the sale of a couple older pieces of apparatus. So
The extrication equipment we bonded for, the Lucas devices are the FAP funding, Adam.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. I meant thank you. Like hard to see. Yeah, the Lucas devices up there for 26. We use the FAP funding. Yep.
That's like savings of like 100,000 that would come off of this total.
Yeah, and again, this is last year's CIP from 25, 29. So obviously, as we head into the new budget cycle, this will get updated with fresh input from the chief and the fire department.
So what are the options as far as funding this from the city standpoint? Are you going out on bond for this and trying to achieve what you have laid out here? I guess just from a township standpoint, we have to budget too. What does this look like year over year? And can this be evened out and, take the highs and lows out of it? And what can we expect from a planning standpoint?
Feel some of that on how this gets financed?
Yeah, I mean, yes, the city does. We have been, are planning on bonding for the, vehicle apparatus purchases, because obviously you're talking $1.5 million sometimes. So that we've been bonding for. The other items, I'd say most of the items we're bonding for, but at least the EMS items you see on there, those we're paying for with existing revenues. So you guys aren't getting billed for that because that's coming out of the revenues. We're using the revenues to cover any capital items that are needed. So we're saving 150-ish a year in revenues from the ambulance to cover not only just general equipment needs, but also to budget about 125 a year for future ambulance purchases, because they're running almost $400,000 now. So that part you're not gonna have to worry about, but the fire specific expenses, yes, those we'll be bonding for. In terms of trying to even them out, I mean, we do the best we can. The problem is, and that's actually the way, part of the reason it's structured the way it is. I mean, if the chief had his pick, he'd probably buy 4 trucks this year or 3 this year,
No,
but.
that puts us in the same predicament.
But I'm just saying that we tried to space it out. It was like, okay, we'll have 1 big truck purchase a year to try and spread it out. But obviously, there's only so much you can do in terms of evening out those expenses. They're $1 million. So yeah, I mean, for 27, where there's not currently a truck budgeted for, it's going to be a low year. But 26 and 28, obviously, if you have truck purchases those years, or fire trucks, you're going to have higher expenses.
So why don't you take some of the EMS money and put it towards fire?
We just can't do that. I mean, obviously EMS is specific to EMS, and there's emergency medical services, right?
No,
So they're separate. No, I'm just saying they're separate funds. Like fire comes from our general fund, and then EMS is because the EMS fund, it's 208, it generates revenues. It's a special revenue fund, so it's separate from the fire department. And just to be clear, there's not enough EMS revenue. There's definitely not enough EMS revenues to cover, because the fact that you guys still get billed every year for some EMS expenses is because there aren't enough EMS revenues to cover the EMS operations.
So do you have any idea of what you're asking from each of the municipalities here on a year-to-year basis?
Well, I mean, it's hard for us to tell you right now in terms of, this is just a plan. I mean, this is hey, we're looking ahead. These prices are going to change. For one thing, I know the fire chief, there's some items on here that we think are going to come in under budget, or maybe some that are over budget. It's really hard for us to know. So, I mean, we certainly do the best we can to tell you what's coming up. But I can't say that, hey, you need to plan on, a fixed number per year, because it's hard for us to know at this point.
I think I'm going back to what you said earlier is, are you guys basically okay with not having, level 3 service, but Elkhorn has to have level 3 service, but we're getting level 5 service, but you're charging us level 3 pricing. Does that make sense? A little bit?
I'd have to think about.
We're getting the share of whatever we use, but we're paying full tilt for something that we're not getting the full service on. Does that make sense?
How is the percentage figured out for the towns?
Based on
Where
calls.
did that come? The
Comes
number
from
of calls,
number of
not the
calls.
number of addresses.
Right. So,
So does it fluctuate every year if
Consistent.
Yeah, it's been pretty close.
Like if you look at Geneva, ours has actually gone down a little bit because we expanded with Lake Geneva to cover one end of Como. So that's actually gone down a little bit. But outside of that, and I've been part of this for about 4.5 years now, it's been pretty consistent.
I'd like to bring something up. I think, I got in the fire service 30 years ago. Madison and Milwaukee counties were pretty much, and maybe Green Bay, Eau Claire, were maybe had paramedic service. And when you say we're paying full boat, but we're not really getting that service. I wasn't a paramedic. I think most of the guys who are sitting around in this room who are firefighters are paramedics. That's a phenomenal service. I mean, realistically, most of your calls are EMS calls, right? And I've been on a number of EMS calls in my life, and when the shit hits the fan, you want a paramedic there who can help you. And so the majority of your calls, you're getting a phenomenal service from the fire department here, I think. And I don't know how it was in Pooler. I know you were on Menominee Falls. I mean, it's grown more, you know, like 15 years ago, Watertown was only hiring paramedics. They saw that, hey, we need paramedic service. That's most of the thing. And it's really a great thing for the residents. I think the fire department really does a great job in all aspects, but especially EMS services.
And we're fortunate too, our chief here's came into kind of a bad situation, I think, when he got in there I'd have to say that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if we look at the contract, we're supposed to have a 10-year plan on replacing vehicles, and we've had that contract for 6 years. So we're kind of like, what's going on?
I think the chief administration over there are really playing catch up.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I know. I mean, we got.
I would totally agree with that.
Yeah.
And I also want to say that I believe that what he's doing is, because we've had several meetings, I think he's trying to keep his costs as low as he can, and I
What he's
appreciate.
buying, he's making it go a long way.
I mean, I don't like the situation, but I understand what's going on here, and I appreciate his efforts.
Got a question regarding the finances of the architect recommendations. My question is, these numbers were 1 month into the presidency back in February. Now the economical climate worldwide has changed greatly. So when someone who is a financial person, economics person, looks at those recommendations and those estimates for building, whether you choose option A, B, or C, when do we get the real numbers? Because those numbers cannot be anywhere close to what we're paying to construct. And I don't, like, again, that's way beyond my pay grade, but there's no way those numbers, given the current economic climate, are gonna be the same numbers in 26, 7, or 8, whenever we get around to building this thing,
$8 million remodel might be 12.
or whatever. I mean, like I said, there's gotta be someone who does economics or something for a living that can, because, yeah, I mean, but
But for planning for all of us.
exactly, to go back to their townships and say, here's our piece of an $8 million remodel, and then we start building it or whatever, and now it's suddenly 10.6, then what do we do? We're halfway done building it, you know, well, that's not what we agreed to.
I think we're seeing I think this kind of happened in the township next to us, if I'm not mistaken. I think that one went way over budget, from what I understand. in Delaware.
I would respectfully recommend that we need something. You know, if the climate stays the way it is right now, this is how much that $8 million building is really gonna cost you in 26 or 7 or 8. Am I wrong?
When it's like, we
You'll
like it.
see those trends, won't you?
Yeah, I mean, if I can weigh in here.
Yeah, Nate, if you.
Yeah, what you're average seeing, well, let me step back for a second. What we saw in 2020, 2021, and 2022 were abnormal inflationary times. We saw anywhere from 13 to 14 to 16% inflation on a given year. That's what made, prices go up as much as they did. Out of the last 2 to 3 years, we saw an average drop back down into inflation around 4%. That has been the historical average when you take out the big loops there. In this budget, the one that was presented to you, knowing that we were not going to be starting construction in 2025, accounted for 1 year of inflation in there. That inflationary number included a 5% inflation because we can argue whether or not that should have been 8 or that should have been 2, but 5 was a relatively conservative number. So as far as when you're asking what cost per square footage, just wanted to give you that time frame. If you wanted to have an economist come in and say, what is it going to look like in 3 or 4 years from now? They may say, well, when are you going to build, right? So if you were to ask me that, we can rerun the numbers based off of what we know we're currently bidding projects at today and state, like, what is the expectation of build quality? What is the expectation of duration of construction and when you expect to do it? And then what we would probably tell you to do is say, we'll give you a cost for 2026, and then I'll give you 5% inflation compounding for years going forward. So we're happy to rerun that budget based off of what we know going forward today. And then we can give you that number of 5% compounded inflation for every year you quote unquote, kick the can down the road. that's not a problem. But I mean, that 5% could be a 12% like we saw in 2020, or it could be a 3.5% like we saw in 2023. So, you know, it's a little bit of everyone's guess here.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, last comment, sorry, is that we work a lot in the public sector. If this happens to be a referendum, those are do not exceed numbers, right? There's other ways to put money towards a project, but if it's a public tax referendum sort of setting, that's a do not exceed. So in those cases where projects come in high, we would work with, obviously, yourselves, this team, to find ways to reduce the cost, to meet the budget, that are not going to affect the day-to-day operations. So there's a lot in there, but it's some context to that.
Is your $8 million remodel 25 numbers?
Those were 26 numbers. So that included 1 year's of inflation in there.
So if we wanted to go 27 number, we'd add 5% to it?
Correct.
Okay, so we can kind of get there, get close anyway.
Can I ask Nate a question?
Yes,
too?
absolutely.
Wasn't, for the estimate that you provided of 8 million, wasn't there some things that weren't included in that number? Like finding a temporary location for the fire department and then also the parking as well?
That's correct. Yeah, those were the two omissions to the remodel, were parking considerations and yeah, the temporary facility.
Hey, we did something, we had a satellite station because construction on Highway 100 when I was in Wauwatosa. We basically, for 3 months while the road construction was on it, rented a construction trailer, lived out of that. It had, you know, enough space to get by for the crew that was out there. It was only 3 people. I know it's a little bit more. Have you guys had any experience with something like that?
With like temporary setups like that? Yeah. I would say, honestly, probably mostly not. We actually experienced the temporary setup quite a bit more in the K-12 market when we bring in temporary classrooms or temporary offices, things like that. So if we just think about a temporary office setup, you're probably in the neighborhood of 50 to 75 grand a month for a temporary office trailer setup, if you're gonna rent something like that. And so then, but on this market, right, the fire public safety market, yeah, I would say most tend to just kind of abandon ship and go elsewhere because the cost to renovate inside an existing facility has its limitations and inconveniences associated to temporary facilities.
What did you say the time frame was? If we said today, we're remodeling station downtown, you said it was.
I mean, so there's a lot to that, but just the bay floor alone, I think you'd be looking at 2 months, right? By the time they get in there, they cut everything up, they recompact it, they get everything prepped. If you got new floor power, new plumbing, things like that getting redone, you're gonna be a minimum of 2 months off that floor. I think you'd probably be closer to 3 if I'm being honest. And then, so you'd have to be off that floor. But that's just the floor alone. If you do a full HVAC replacement, if you do a full roofing replacement, you can do a roof replacement while you're in the building. You can do an HVAC replacement while you're in the building, but you're also not going to be pushing fresh air. So I would probably say you probably have to get a temporary HVAC solution for the folks sleeping upstairs while the project's going on. So it's not like we can come into the fire station, you know, and then go home at 5 o'clock. You know, these folks are there 24/7.
So what I probably should look for a different location and say that part of Elkhorn isn't going to be the top rated area. I mean,
I
that's, I
don't
mean, that's,
disagree. I'm just thinking that then you're going from 8 to 13
right, but you're,
plus the inflation,
I guarantee you.
but more
fix this-
ideal site.
You fix this place up and it's not going to be to what the $10 million place is going to be your $12 million place.
Good money after bad.
Yeah, you're just, yeah. It's like, keep running the old fire truck, you know? It's a bad idea.
At the current location, there's that boulevard out front. Is it possible to revise that right away and to gain some more room for a new building?
The boulevard doesn't extend down in front of the station, but it's there. I guess, I don't know that anyone's looked at that. Anyone has?
I mean, that's a 120-foot wide right of way there or something. I mean, is there something creative there to revise that roadway and make some more room?
Make the street narrower and have an apron in front of the
And
firehouse.
it is wide there. It's very wide.
Yep. Based on it, why don't we just eliminate the road? Why don't we just eliminate the road?
City right away.
Right, stop it at, what's the next block to the south? Is it Geneva? So, end Broad Street there, and then they can build a firehouse right there in the middle. And have it exit out into
Drive in, drive out.
I mean,
Well, there's
the
businesses
American
and
Legion.
residences across the street.
have to-
Yeah, you can't do that. Can't drive to their houses or their business anymore.
for the parking
I like your right.
I'm just saying, well, or even some mixture thereof.
There's 3 or 4 single family homes, basically right across the street.
Could you build it on the north end of the road, before Wallen Street? Yeah, there's not a lot in there, is there? What's right across from a fire station?
I just think too,
The old, yeah, the church VFW, and then they're putting up what used to be Knights of Columbus, the new building.
Brand new building.
Brett, when you guys pulled out, I mean, how much of that road are you currently using to pull out now?
Depending on the truck, most of it.
Well, that in itself would be a problem then, right? If you're narrowing the road width.
Sure.
And you're not gonna get enough roadway to create a pad where you can pull a truck out. The truck, or the road just isn't wide enough to use the road as a outside pad. It's not big enough. So like, we have to stretch the aerial every day, checking it out. You're pulling it out, backing it in once everybody's parked in there. And, you're stretching the aerial out, running everything to make sure everything works. So we have to do that in the parking lot off to the side. That's the reality of it. You're not parking it in the road, you're setting outriggers, so.
It's a creative idea.
Well, we went through the agenda, we've had a lot of food for thought. What's our next step? Would we like to meet again, maybe after you've had a chance to go back to your townships and we've had a chance to talk about it more and
That probably makes sense.
see what you think? I mean, can we meet in a month or 6 weeks or?
Can we schedule it now while we're all here?
Yep. That's what-
Because the emails back and forth about when are you available and all that. Huh?
Somebody's got fish and
Oh, that's not, you can go on without
It was
me.
a matter of time before that came out. We'll bring fish to you.
How much time does everybody need?
Are we gonna do another Thursday night? What is this, probably the 4th Thursday of the month?
Well, how often does the townships meet? Because when's your next meeting? Because if they don't meet for another month,
We meet on the third Monday.
So it's after the 19th meeting.
so you're in the Joe.
Wednesday. When do you have your meetings? Steve?
Our town board meeting?
Yeah.
Second Monday.
So we met the 4th Thursday?
It'd be the 22nd in May.
That's right before Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, okay. No problem.
It could be.
It's the Thursday before Memorial Day weekend.
Could
so-
be. Not to mention what it's gonna be like up here.
Following Thursday? That's the 29th. Unless people are still doing stuff from Memorial Day on 29th. I don't know.
Excuse me, if I can, I just realized I misspoke on something. So temporary office trailers, I was thinking construction management office trailers at the 50 grand a month, that was too high. So I would say like if you were to do your own, right, you found a vendor offsite, and you did your own rental, you're probably looking in the $1,500 to $2,500 a month.
So I was like, thank you, because I was like, what?
Sorry, I was thinking general contractor.
Okay, I'm not saying nothing.
I was thinking general contractor trailer, staffed person on site. So that was very well.
29th?
What day of the week is it?
So the Thursday.
Thursday, the 29th of May.
I'm out of town. Who's out of town?
No matter what day we pick, someone's gonna be out of town.
Yeah.
It's summertime coming up.
Right.
I mean,
So we're going with the 29th?
that good with you, Steve?
Yeah, that should be fine. The Thursday, right?
Yep.
Correct.
5:30?
Yep, 5:30. I think the rule will still apply that you have to have a quorum of each body that comes together in order to vote. I don't know that we'll be anywhere near voting on anything yet, but just so everybody's aware of that. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I think we had a great discussion and we value any input or concerns or, anything you have. It's effort with all of us here. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourn.